Hello everyone, welcome here to round number 4 of the 2018C NASA RallyCross Challenge season, as we are back at the Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida. We're at the long configuration of the two infield layouts, as it's Josh Mertz bringing you the call as always for the Automotive Sports Network. We're going to jump right into it. 11 cars getting ready to take part. Chad Simpson is given a 12th place provisional, not feeling well for Last Lap Motorsports. That will give us 3 heat races of 6 laps apiece. Joker lap once, top 2 advance. LCQ is 4 laps. Joker lap once, top 2 advance. And an 8-car final for 12 laps, Joker twice. It's been fairly interesting today in Daytona Beach. As you can see, it's not the sunniest of days. It's a little bit cloudy, a little bit cold, and these cars are behaving very strangely. But of course, it's been Philip Kraus and Josh Mertz versus Connor Parisi and Jeff Applegren. And Barwin Mofta kind of sprinkled in there as well. The Vuzion cars and the MRT cars have been battling all season long, and this battle is getting better every race. As Philip Kraus, fastest in qualifying for the MRT boys, he will lead us off in heat number 1. So it's going to be the MRT teammates, Jacob Harberts and Jacob Kraus, getting ready for 6 laps in Daytona. Green flag off the line. Harberts and Mertz make contact off the line. Philip Kraus leads us down into turn number 1. And will Mertz battle still with Harberts? Side by side they are. Kraus leads us. Harberts, Mertz, and Jacob Kraus as we begin the first lap of the race. And Philip Kraus has been on fire all practice long. Faster than Parisi, faster than Applegren and Mofta. Jacob Kraus in the back of the shot in the Volkswagen off the road. Harbert's around in the 80 nearly. He hits the tires and he is off the track. So not a good day for the privateer, as Kraus's teammate Mertz has been nowhere this evening in Daytona Beach. Way off pace of his teammate. Not sure what's going on inside car number 1 for the defending champion, but certainly he is nowhere compared to the 2-time champion Philip Kraus, as Kraus leads us at the end of the first lap in Daytona. 54.4 to a 57.5. Obviously that was a start lap, so it doesn't necessarily count, as Mertz hit the tire barrier in that first chicane. But something's going on inside of car number 1, and we'll talk about that all race long. Kraus and Harberts battling for third, as they both had an issue in their first lap. Kraus nearly, he does make contact with Harberts. I said nearly spinning, but Harberts was there to save him from that spin. So the Wisconsin native certainly struggling into the tires in car number 42, and I think that engine is grenaded. 41.1 to a 41.9. The teammates are about equal on pace, but Kraus is definitely not pushing, and his teammate, I think, certainly is pushing too hard. We've seen that happen before in the past. Remember Iowa last season. As we're coming across flags in the heat race in Daytona, and MRT coming off that 1-2 finish last week in Texas, certainly trying to build some momentum after Vuzion had 2 consecutive race victories. No jokers yet out of these guys. They probably are going to be jokering in the last lap of the race. There's really no contest between any of them, as you'll notice the huge gap that Kraus has over his teammate, and Mertz is struggling still. .42.7 to a 41.2, a second and a half slower. And it's definitely a changing of the guard at this team, but it's very weird as Kraus jokers, because there's some days where the order is reversed on this team. So they're not specifically consistent like they need to be, like they used to be on the Gen 3 cars. And I'm not really sure how these guys would get to that consistent level aside from a considerable amount of practice. 2 to go for Kraus as he jokered. I don't think his teammates jokered, but like I mentioned, it doesn't necessarily matter as we look at Mertz and we look at Harberts. Harberts has a huge gap to make up if he can even think about transferring, but I don't think it will happen today in Daytona. He'll have to go to the LCQ. It's a very tricky circuit. Very rewarding if you can get it right, that is for sure. And from high above, Kraus has taken the white flag of heat number 1, and you'll notice the groove forming. The dirt has been pushed away, and these cars certainly behave very well on the cleared dirt. So there's a nasty bump right on that transition from dirt to asphalt and into the hairpin, onto the oval for just a moment, and onto the road course. As Harberts is pushing hard, but Mertz is just going to bring it home. Philip Kraus through the final corner will win from pole position in heat number 1. His teammate jokers on the last lap of the race, so MRT will get 2 points and 1 point for the Drivers' Championship. He comes home second in transfers as Harberts and Kraus, Jacob Kraus, to the LCQ. As I might have forgot to mention as we begin heat number 2, Applegren, Moftaw, Kingsbury, green flag. There's a 4-way tie in the point standings coming in between Kraus, Mertz, Parisi, and Moftaw. So that's certainly a little interesting as Applegren leads us to begin the first lap of the race. Over the jump. And Kingsbury into the tires. As Matt Kingsbury, once again, late to the circuit, didn't have a lot of practice. Moftaw to the inside of Applegren in the 191 on the 95. And this is certainly going to be a race into the hairpin. Applegren, who had some issues last week in Texas, as Moftaw as well. Texas was not a good race for these guys. But back on the familiar territory of Daytona, where they certainly have a lot of practice. And at the end of the first lap, Jeff Applegren for Vuzion will lead us, followed by Moftaw and Matt Kingsbury, who I believe, as I was about to say, still struggling, and he's definitely still struggling in the 21. Moftaw to the inside of Applegren. Looks like he clipped the tires. Couldn't get a very good run through the corner. And the Egyptian trying to take the fight to the American here in heat number 2. Getting close, but it's still a huge gap to make up on a dive bomb pass, and none of these guys necessarily would want to do that to one another. But Applegren certainly pulling out a large advantage. Now, it's going to be interesting if Moftaw will rotate the strategy on Applegren or if he will just bring it home behind him. As Moftaw is not necessarily worrying, I think, about Applegren, because Applegren's down on points after having the issues that he did in Phoenix when he did not run. So unless Applegren can essentially win every single race from here on out, I don't think he'll win the championship, because we are crossing into that point of championship runs here as we take cross flags in Daytona. And still nothing really has changed. It's a 40.9 to a 40.8. These guys are on the same pace, and there's not a lot going on unless you think about lap times. And Moftaw really, I think, is just using this as a practice session, because he is as quick as these guys, but you certainly want to learn lines. You're always learning when you're inside the car. And I think that's what he's doing. He's taking this time. He knows that he's going to transfer at least. So he's going to take this time, practice the lines, learn a little bit, and maybe take the fight to Applegren. Because there's still no jokers. They're coming to 2 to go, and he's only got 2 more shots to alternate his strategy to potentially win this race. And I don't know if he's going to be doing that, honestly. Because it doesn't look like he is pushing too hard to win this race. And he's off the road. Well, not off the road, off the groove, I should say. And I think he might be just giving up, because he will get the bonus point for finishing second. But Applegren, 41 flat to a 41-1. Let's see if Applegren will joker coming to the white flag in Daytona. Or will Moftaw? No joker for Applegren, No joker for Moftaw, so this race, unless someone stuffs it into the barrier, is over a lap early. But it's not over till it's over. White flag for Applegren. 40.002 to a 41.856. 41.002, I should say. My apologies. But because Moftaw went off the road, off the jump, or out of the groove, that is a huge gap that he lost. But like I mentioned, there's really no battle going on because I think they both have to joker. They're just going to bring it home in first and second. I'd say a formation finish, but they're not teammates. Applegren to the joker, Moftaw to the joker. A very subdued second heat. Kingsbury to the LCQ. Applegren, 2 bonus points in Daytona. So here's the other red plate holder, Connor Parisi in car number 11. Ray Kingsbury and Travis Kurzwinski getting ready for the third heat race in Daytona. Green flag off the line. Parisi gets a great jump. 2-time winner this season. Newcomer Kurzwinski battling Kingsbury to turn number 1 as the Volkswagen goes off the road in car number 093. As we begin the first lap of the race, you're going to see Vuzion versus last lap. As I mentioned the 4-way tie in points, they're essentially a 4-way tie coming in before the heat races, but it was Parisi and Mertz tied at the points lead. And then 1 point behind, it was Moftaw and Kraus. So essentially a 4-point lead, which is astounding because I didn't think we could beat the 3-way tie. If you remember way back 2014B, in Germany, when it was Livengood, Erdmann, and Mertz tied for the points lead after 3 races. I didn't think we could beat that at the end of the first lap. Parisi leads 54.609. Kingsbury 55.5 as he threw it off the side of the jump in car number 25. As the Vuzion cars have certainly spiced up the NASA RallyCross Challenge, being much quicker than the rest of the field, and I brought this up 2 weeks ago in Phoenix, that it resets the benchmark that everyone's trying to accomplish, because for the longest time, and I beat this dead horse every single show, for the longest time, the RRT boys and Chris Wetz were the fastest cars in NASA RallyCross. So you kind of hit that peak with, as Parisi is going to drift and show off as he knows he's got a huge gap over Kingsbury. As we hit that plateau of speed with cars, because with those Gen 3 regulations, you'll ask the drivers and they'll say, we've extracted every single thing out of this car that's physically possible. And at the end of those regulations, I would tend to agree with them, because every single week they were pushing really hard. These cars on iRacing, they're a mystery, unless you're Connor Parisi and Jeff Applegren and Marwan Moftaw, but we don't talk about that. These cars are a mystery because with the track changing and everything else that's a variable, you can gain so much speed, as the Gen 3 cars did not have adapting tracks. So that should tell you something. Adapting tracks, harder to drive cars, and that brings the skill out in the drivers evermore. Cross flags in Daytona for Connor Parisi, 2-time winner in the NASA RallyCross Challenge this season, and trying to get a 3rd victory. It's him and Philip Kraus as men that stand on the top step of the podium this season. Ray Kingsbury, car number 25, the man from Connecticut, has had an up-and-down season. He's made the final, I do believe, most of the races, but he's had an up-and-down season adapting to the Subaru program, but he still holds second. And Travis Kurzwinski, newcomer in the NASA RallyCross Challenge in the Volkswagen, struggling getting a handle on the car. Connor is not even pushing at all. I'm going to be upfront and honest right now, looking at the lap time, 42.097. He knows that he's got this in the bag. And I normally never say that, but he's got such a huge gap that he's got this before we take the white flag. So he's essentially just cruising. Let's see if he doesn't drift again in the final corner. He is. That's all he's doing. He is mimicking Ken Block and Gymkhana into the final corner. White flag for Parisi. But Parisi, I try not to hype up everyone too much. I probably do. But Parisi is not actually on form like he normally is, because, as you'll notice, he's in the third heat race, and he's seated first in this third heat race. He was third in qualifying, and normally that's not a big deal, but he was considerably off Philip Kraus. It was Appelgren and Kraus that were within, it was within a hundredth of a second. It was a couple hundredths of a second. Parisi was a couple tenths down as he takes to the Joker. He'll win the third heat race, but he certainly has work to do to catch his teammate in Kraus as Parisi wins Heat 3. Kingsbury second, Krzyzewski to the LCQ. 4 laps in the LCQ here in Daytona, as we were supposed to have Nick Dawson in the second heat race, but the man from California had some car issues, so we only have a 4-car LCQ. As Jacob Kraus jumps the start, so does Krzyzewski. Green flag. Off the line, Matt Kingsbury leads Harbert side by side with Krzyzewski into turn number 1. I'm not sure what's going to happen with race control and the jump starts for the Volkswagens, but Kingsbury leads us as we begin the first lap of the race. Harberts, Krzyzewski, and Jacob Kraus over the jump. Harberts battling his former teammate Matt Kingsbury through the dirt. The Subaru runs it wide as Kingsbury takes the lead. Harberts takes the lead over Kingsbury. As I got so focused on the 21, as the Volkswagen synchronized spinning in the hairpin as they both gas it to try and get going again, and they hit each other. Cue the Benny Hill theme song for the two Volkswagens as they both came together as Jacob Kraus battling with Travis, and they made contact again as Jacob Kraus is around in the 42. Harberts leads at the end of the first lap. So we can essentially make this LCQ done and dusted. The heat races have been very muted in Daytona. Harberts leads Kingsbury, leads Krzyzewski, as Jacob Kraus looks like he rolled the engine back in car number 42, and take him out of it, he will finish in 10th. 11th, Nick Dawson. 12th, Chad Simpson. Remember the provisional, and Nick Dawson's had some car issues in the 00 for rookie racing. As the man from Oakland certainly had some pace to battle Kraus in practice, but then the car blew up, engine grenaded, and he could not take part in the heat races. 2 to go for Harberts in the LCQ. As Kingsbury ran it wide, right in this little corner here, and it gave Harberts all he needed to take the lead. Granted, you do not get bonus points in the LCQ. That has never been a thing, but you do get a better gate pick. And Harberts certainly needs a better gate pick. As coming in, he's at the bottom of the top 10 in points, and he certainly needs a good run in his Volkswagen. He's been taken out, I believe, every single race on the first lap of the race, so not a good day. White flag for Harberts. And the man who ran on the factory last lap motorsports squad last season on his privateer Volkswagen team, Matt Kingsbury. 42.653, Harberts 41.301, and Krzyzewski 46.339. So Krzyzewski struggling. I believe this is one of his first RallyCross races. It is his first NASA RallyCross event, so certainly getting used to the cars. Jokering on the last lap is Harberts, and I believe Kingsbury. Another subdued heat race, but Harberts wins the LCQ. And transferring to the round of Daytona will be Matt Kingsbury. Finishing 9th is Travis Krzyzewski, 10th Jacob Kraus, and 11th Nick Dawson. This is the moment we have been waiting for. The round of Daytona for NASA RallyCross. As we're getting ready for an 8-car final. Philip Kraus, Jeff Appelgren, Connor Parisi, Josh Mertz, Marwan Moftah, Ray Kingsbury, Matt Kingsbury, Jacob Harberts. 12 laps and 2 jokers. It's going to be Vuzion versus MRT here in Daytona, getting ready to go. Green flag off the line. Kraus gets a good jump. No! Appelgren gets a better jump than him as the Vuzion teammates into turn 1. Kraus hits Appelgren. Mertz hit Kraus. And out of the first corner, it's going to be Philip Kraus, Jeff Appelgren, Mertz side by side with Parisi, and Harberts, Kingsbury, Moftah, and Matt Kingsbury. Over the jump, Kraus leads us. Appelgren needs to get out of the way. Contact to the back. It's Moftah with Ray Ray Kingsbury into the dirt for the first time. Kraus is going to lead Appelgren. Mertz gets turned by Parisi, and both of them are off the track and into the tires as Mertz and Parisi off the track already. As they're both struggling to get the cars into gear, Ray Kingsbury passes Parisi. That elevates Moftaw to third. And Kraus and Appelgren, this is going to be the battle all race long. Matt Kingsbury up to fourth as Ray Kingsbury battling with Parisi, Harberts, and Mertz. Kraus leads at the end of the first lap, and this is going to be an absolutely electric battle between these two drivers. Appelgren over the jump squirrely in car number 95. And it's Parisi. Certainly a man on a mission, trying to get back to the front. Kingsbury, Harberts, and Mertz, who is struggling even more in car number 1. As these guys are going to be pushing literally like there is no tomorrow to take this fight. Harberts to the inside of Kingsbury, trying to take the fight. They nearly make contact. Parisi in 5th. And Mertz, your co-points leader, as the points leaders came together, he is in 8th. As Parisi runs it wide. Back up to the front of the field. Appelgren got by Kraus. In the 2, he got by him. There's so much action going on. Kingsbury, Mertz off the road. Nearly in the 1. Let's focus on the battle for the leaders. Appelgren got by Kraus. And this is going to be absolutely fascinating to see if Kraus can take this fight again. It looks like that must have been how the lead was changed, because he did Joker, Kraus Jokers, and takes the lead back. What a battle here in Daytona. Moftaw, 3rd. 4th is Matt Kingsbury. 5th, Ray Kingsbury. 6th, Parisi. 7th, Harberts. 8th, Mertz. And like I said in the heat race, something in car number 1 is not right, because he is all over the track in car number 1, and especially right there, and into the tires goes the defending champion. And he's out. For the first time in 5 years, car number 1 has retired from a NASA Rallycross event. As I do stand corrected, my apologies, first time in 2 years. It was 2016 Las Vegas where he last retired. Over the jump, Kraus still leads. Appelgren 2nd. Kraus hits the tires in car number 2, and Appelgren takes the lead. As the lead changes again, and I stand corrected again with my fact check. They're telling me in my ear every second that I spout something wrong. Mertz last retired 2017 B bent twig. It's not often though. That's why I'm getting it wrong. Appelgren, coming to take the cross flags lap, will lead in car number 95, ahead of Philip Kraus in car number 2, Marwan Moftaw, car number 191. Then Matt Kingsbury. Harbert's Joker's ahead of Parisi, so put him up a couple spots. Parisi, Kingsbury, Mertz. So Mertz comes home in 8th for the round of Daytona. And we're going to have to see if Kraus can get this lead back, but that tire barrier, I think, has broken the car, because he's certainly struggling now. He locks it up in car number 2. Moftaw 3rd. Running order has not changed. Over the jump goes Appelgren. We have taken cross flags in Daytona. And Appelgren, as Kraus hits the tires again, and I think that's going to settle the race victory. Yes, we have half a race left, but I think it's now going to be a battle for second as Kraus hit the tires again in the dirt. As Subaru trying to get 4 wins in a row this season. They have been the dominating program all season long. Moftaw 3rd, Kingsbury, Harberts, Parisi, and Ray Kingsbury. 5 to go for Jeff Appelgren, trying to win his first race in NASA Rallycross. Become the 3rd driver for Vuzion Racing to stand on top of the podium and make this team, and I say this every week, make this team known in the NASA Rallycross Challenge. Why they have the prestige in the pro ranks, you're nothing in NASA Rallycross unless you can win a whole bunch of races. Moftaw leads Kraus, so he got by for the second spot. Kraus slips from the lead to third as Kraus jokers again. And there's something going on in the MRT cars today because Kraus has locked up the rears, and he slid the rears through the entire joker, took the spot back. But if you noticed, it wasn't very fast. Matt Kingsbury jokers. He is in fourth. Fifth is Harberts. Sixth is Parisi. Seventh is Kingsbury. That running order has not changed for quite some time. As Applegren still leads us in the 95. Cruising away at a 39.823. Kraus jokered. It was a 40.164. Moftaw 41.690. Kraus locks up the rears again. There's something going on in the MRT cars as we take 3 laps to go in Daytona. This battle's fascinating. Moftaw over the jump. Holds the spot as Kraus tries to defend. Kingsbury and Harberts battling for the 4th position. Harberts to the inside of Kingsbury. Looks like he'll take the spot on his former teammate into the hairpin. Yes, he will. Parisi struggling in the 11. Kingsbury struggling in the 25 as both of them into the tire barrier. 2 to go for Applegren. Kingsbury off the road, gets passed by Applegren and put a lap down. Put the Connecticut native back to 7th. The battle for 2nd still ramping up. I think there's a joker left for one of these guys. Tire barrier in the middle of the road. Moftaw goes to the inside. Kraus went to the outside. Almost like a supercross path when they have 2 different courses to go through. Kingsbury struggling still in the 25. This battle for 2nd is probably the best one we have. 4th is Harberts. 5th is Matt Kingsbury. Parisi, I don't think, is anywhere close today in Daytona. White flag for his teammate Applegren in Daytona. I think there was a joker strategy unraveling. It was Moftaw to 2nd over Kraus in 3rd. I think that's the strategy played. And Philip Kraus has got to be kicking himself once he gets out of this car and goes back to the team transporter because he had the pace to win this race. He had the pace. And he threw it away. To the inside of Moftaw he goes, trying to take the 2nd spot. I don't think that's going to happen. Down the final straightaway, into the final corner. The joker for the final time. Jeff Applegren will win in Daytona for the first time in his NASA Rallycross career. And it's 3 wins for Vuzion Racing this season. Moftaw will get ahead of Kraus, finish 2nd, Kraus 3rd. Kingsbury comes home 7th off the lead lap. As Harberts will come home in the 4th position. 5th is Kingsbury. As a little satellite issue there. 5th is Kingsbury. On the road, 6th is Parisi. 7th is Ray Kingsbury. But as we take a look at the adjusted results, as Connor Parisi only took 1 joker in Daytona. Applegren, Moftaw, Kraus, Harberts, Matt Kingsbury, those results stay the same. Ray Kingsbury goes to 6th, Mertz to 7th, and Parisi to 8th. Travis Kruswinski 9th, 10th Jacob Kraus, 11th Nick Dawson, and the provisional to Chad Simpson. That changes up the points a little bit. Marwan Moftaw comes out of nowhere to take the red plate over Parisi and Mertz going into Atlanta next week. He has 1 point over Philip Kraus. Parisi and Mertz on 60 points. Applegren 57. Ray Kingsbury 51. And then it's a considerable drop down to Harberts with 36. Matt Kingsbury 31. Simpson 27. Naughton with 22. It's a new circuit next week in Atlanta, so we suspect the pro drivers won't have as much of an edge, but it'll certainly be a great race. As we hope you enjoyed today's coverage of NASA Rallycross on the Automotive Sports Network. We'll see you next week in Hampton, Georgia at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. But until then, so long, everyone.